Millions of us feel it every single day, but we really struggle to wrap our heads around it. We're talking about that very real, very physical link between what's happening in your mind and what you're actually feeling in your body. Yeah, we're diving into the connection between anxiety and pain.
I mean, come on, who hasn't? That sudden tension headache right before a big meeting, or that awful knot in your stomach when you're worried about something? These aren't just expressions we use. They are real, tangible, physical sensations. And it turns out there's a fascinating reason why that happens.
So, what's the deal here? How does this even happen? Well, we're going to start by looking at this whole thing as a kind of false alarm system in the body. It's a situation where the stress that starts in your mind pulls a fire alarm that sets off a very real physical response. And here's something I need you to hear right from the jump. It is not all in your head. If you've ever felt pain that you know is coming from anxiety, that pain is 100% legitimate. It's a biological thing, a physiological event. It's not a sign of weakness, and you are definitely not imagining it. Okay, so let's put on our detective hats and investigate anxiety's physical footprint. We're going to uncover the biological clues that explain exactly how an emotion, something that feels so abstract, can cause a very concrete physical sensation. So what is really going on under the hood? When your mind is just racing with worry, what signals is it sending to the rest of your body that end up creating these aches and pains? We're going to follow the trail and find out. All right, our whole investigation really boils down to 4 key clues. First, we'll look at how the body braces for impact. Then, we'll see how the volume on our pain perception gets turned way up. After that, we'll explore how some wires get crossed in the brain. And finally, how this whole connection can become an ingrained habit. Okay, clue number 1 is the famous fight or flight response. We've all heard of it. When your brain thinks there's a threat, and it doesn't care if it's a tiger or just an anxious thought about a deadline, it gets your body ready for action. Your muscles clench up, preparing to either run or fight. But when there's no actual running or fighting to do, that tension just sits there. And that's where you get the headaches, the backaches, all that general soreness. Clue number 2 is all about perception. So think of your brain's pain system like a smoke alarm. It's supposed to go off when there's a real fire, right? Well, anxiety can sneak in and turn the sensitivity dial all the way up. All of a sudden, these totally normal body sensations, things you wouldn't even notice otherwise, get flagged as major threats, and the piercing alarm of pain starts blaring. And clue number 3? This one comes down to brain geography. It's kind of funny, actually. The parts of your brain that handle emotion, like the amygdala, are literally right next door to the parts that process pain signals. They're neighbors. So when your anxiety kicks into high gear, the emotion center gets super active and loud, and all that noise spills over the fence, amplifying everything happening in the pain center next door. But here's the twist. This isn't just a one-way street where anxiety causes pain. Oh no, we're now entering what scientists call the pain-anxiety spiral. And believe me, it is a vicious, self-perpetuating cycle. Let's break this down. We've already seen how anxiety can lead to pain, right? Through that muscle tension and the super sensitive pain alarm. But the reverse is also true. The pain itself becomes a source of stress. Living with chronic pain is exhausting, it's worrisome. And all of that worry, well, it just fuels more anxiety. You see the feedback loop? And that's the real kicker. Each side of this equation just keeps feeding the other, creating this powerful self-reinforcing cycle that can feel absolutely impossible to escape. The more pain you feel, the more anxious you get, and of course, the more anxious you are, the more pain you feel. So what is it that locks this whole cycle in place? What makes it so sticky? Well, this brings us to our final clue, which explains how the brain actually learns this connection and makes it permanent, turning what might have been a temporary thing into a chronic condition. And here it is, the learned response. It's just like how practicing guitar creates strong pathways in your brain. If you repeatedly experience anxiety and pain together, your brain strengthens the connections between them. It gets really, really good at linking the two until eventually the connection is totally automatic. It becomes a deep, well-worn path in your mind. And this isn't just a metaphor. This is straight-up neuroscience. Your brain physically changes. The synapses, those little bridges between your brain cells, are literally rewired to reinforce this link. The pathway from an anxious thought to a physical pain becomes a superhighway. And you know what? The data on this is overwhelming. Study after study shows this powerful link. People with anxiety disorders are way more likely to report physical pain. And on the flip side, people who live with chronic pain conditions have a much, much higher chance of developing anxiety. The evidence is just undeniable. Okay, so we followed the clues, we've kind of solved the mystery, but what's the point of all this? Why does knowing this stuff actually matter? Well, this is the part where we turn all that understanding into actual power.
Because honestly, the very act of understanding this process can be life-changing. When you finally get that what you're feeling is a real biological thing, you can stop blaming yourself. You can stop thinking you're weak and start looking for real mind-body solutions. It demystifies the whole thing and gives you solid ground to stand on.
Maybe the most important thing to walk away with is this. Experiencing pain from anxiety is not a personal failing. It is not a flaw in your character. It is simply a result of your body's wiring, a protective system that's just gotten a little too sensitive for its own good. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if we reframed this whole experience? What if that physical pain isn't some enemy you have to defeat? What if it's just a message, a physical signal from your mind that's asking you, begging you to just pay attention? You know, thinking about it that way, it might just change everything.